Hey everyone, and welcome to Rock Video Rental. I am Caleb, and usually with me would be Brandon, and he would actually be doing the introduction and everything. But he is under the weather this week, so I am going to be doing Major League solo with you all for this episode. Before we jump into that, we usually take a little bit of time at the beginning to talk about the things that we've been watching lately. And I don't really have much to share, which is not the surprising thing if you've been hanging out with us, because that is usually Brandon's specialty, is he's the one who gets a little bit more time and has some unique things to share. I will say a few things. I have learned that I am not one to really get into those shows where I think the one specifically that my wife watches is Dr. Pimple Popper. Thanks and no thanks. I'm not super into those kind of things because she's been watching that lately. And so I have not really hung around her when she's been watching that. But yeah, if you don't already know, usually it is football, college, NFL that I'm watching during this time of year. But the other thing worth mentioning, and I'm not going to really get into too much with the game, but I am going to go on a hot topic real quick because there is the recent game, popular game that came out, Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2, that has kind of been a fad lately for a lot of gamers. And we don't talk about a lot on the show, but the one thing that I do want to say in lieu of the argument that comes up quite often on being how games can be kind of a waste of time compared to other hobbies, which is surprising, like watching movies. If you're one to watch movies and you think playing video games is a waste of time, it's kind of surprising because that's telling me that you have not played a lot of video games, and there are some amazing video games with amazing storylines. Some of the best plot twists I've ever seen in stories have come from video games. So this is just my, I don't know, 60-second pitch to anyone who has been doubtful about video games. Um, do a little bit of research or actually just ask around, and I'm sure that you can know someone or even ask us. There are a few single player storyline games that you can play that will just give you amazing stories. So it's even better than a movie because you're actually the one who's driving the story and in the driver's seat making decisions. So, anyways, that thought kind of crossed my mind this week, and I figured I'd kind of share it because I don't have a lot of movies to talk about. But not to waste any more time, let's go ahead and jump into the final movie for Sportstember this year, Major League. 1989, and is a sports comedy. The plot is the new owner of the Cleveland Indians puts together a purposely horrible team so they'll lose and she can move the team. But when the plot is uncovered, they start winning just to spite her. So the director is David S. Ward, and some of the notable cast members are Tom Berenger, Charlie Sheen, Corbin Burnson, Margaret Whitten, James Gammon, Rene Russo, Wesley Snipes, and Dennis Hasbert. So, a couple quick things, notes about the cast. First of all, a very memorable cast. This is probably my third, maybe my fourth time watching this all the way through. Kind of a common movie that you would see around. I feel like it played on TV. Obviously, not all parts because it is a rated R movie, but they really did a good job with the casting in this movie. Great characters. James Gammon as the manager did a great job. I don't know if I would say finally connect the dots. I kind of had that realization this time around that Corbin Burnson, who played Roger, was Sean's dad from Psych. That was actually kind of the first thing I associated with him, even though I watched Major League way before Psych, obviously. But the other bigger one that I had that I feel almost ridiculous for not making the connection for is Dennis Hasbert as Pedro, the voodoo religious guy who has the shrine in his locker. I don't know. It actually was partially through the movie that I realized that he was the guy from all the Allstate commercials. So that was kind of a funny one this time around. So, but yeah, starting off with the cast, great cast. I mean, obviously Charlie Sheen is Charlie Sheen. This was more in probably the better parts of his career and everything, when things were on the trajectory of going up. And yeah, I don't know exactly what the dynamic of the cast was, but it seemed like they had good chemistry and probably had a decent time making this movie. With this movie kind of just starting out, there are a couple things that are a little bit funny to me. Obviously, well, maybe not super obviously if you're not really into the sport of baseball. Baseball is not, I'm mostly into football, so my knowledge on baseball is very low, but I do know that it's not the Indians anymore, is the Cleveland Guardians. When that happened, I can't remember. But it is kind of interesting that you have this memorable movie comedy around this baseball team that is technically no longer or has been renamed. So, and of course, they have some kind of jokes and shticks throughout the movie that make you laugh about it, because it's so wacky now to think about. But they have TP talk and other things about uh, terms like featherheads, and things of that nature. So just definitely a product of its time. I'm sure that in 10, 20 years now from 2024, there are going to be things that are mentioned and terms are used in movies that aren't going to make any sense anymore because of how much time has passed. Obviously, it's been more than 20 years for this movie, but I think you understand my point with that. So, one of the funniest parts at the beginning was actually the opening sequence with the song. Um, I had a ridiculous moment where I was just like, wow, this kind of reminds me of Toy Story. And go figure, because it's actually Randy Newman singing the song. I'm not entirely sure what the opening sequence was about. If they were kind of doing a shtick about making it funny where they don't make Cleveland look very glamorous or nice at all. That was kind of my takeaway from it, but that was kind of interesting a little bit to me. Just Randy Newman has such a unique sound, and so that was kind of a to me a funny beginning to the movie. So a couple things overall for this movie. Cinematography done pretty well. I mean, it's nothing special. This is a sports comedy. They're not going to be doing anything special to make it. They're not competing for awards or anything like that. They're just looking to make a good movie, and they did a pretty good movie at that. The cinematography was well. The plot was nothing special. I mean, pretty standard. It's underdog sports comedy, which is very common in a bunch of different ways. Like either a bunch of people who are told they're losers and then they come back and make something of themselves, like something similar to dodgeball, or in this situation, they are set up to fail and not realizing it right away, and then they do things just to spite the owner and leadership of the organization. So overall, kind of already talked about the cast. It's a fun cast, a memorable cast. The chemistry seemed to be good between everyone. I'd be kind of interested, especially with some of those big personalities, if that was really the case or if some people didn't get along with each other. Um, and acting in general, I would probably give this was pretty good. I don't know. Normally, we don't do like letter grades or anything, but I'd say acting overall B plus, A minus. Nothing spectacular, but definitely nothing clunky. It was smooth and it was enjoyable. So the thing that's a little interesting to me, and I'm not super well versed in this, but this could possibly be the best baseball comedy. I did a quick look at some of the other ones, and yeah, there are some other memorable ones, but it seems like this is the most popular, at least from what I've heard and talked with other people. So, yeah, and just kind of going into things, it starts off. in such kind of a fun way of introducing all the characters. I mean, they have a common way of coming together because they're all going in for spring training and just a complete wide variety. Um, and somehow they're supposed to band together and then come together and actually win some games and lead their, I don't even know if I'm saying this right because my knowledge of baseball, their division in baseball, their league in baseball. Because I know it wasn't the pennant that they were playing. They were playing for like their division. And the Yankees were like their rivals in the movie and everything. So I don't know if that's true in the sport in general, if there's a rivalry between them, but they made it out in this movie. So, um, it's just I'm not going to walk through the whole movie, but kind of some memorable things is I really gotta like and appreciate the manager and him not taking BS from anybody. Talking about the Roger character trying to argue things in his contract, where he just goes ahead and takes the contract, throws it on the ground, and he pees on it. And just going from that, and then also when he was even just offered the job in the first place, he was not sure and reluctant in taking it in the first place. When you always think about if somebody offers you a job like that in professional sports, you don't ask questions, you just say yes. So his attitude and character throughout the show is pretty funny. Um, and of course, he butts heads with the owner, and there's the memorable locker scene between them where she comes down and they have their confrontation in front of everyone. Um, the thing I had to mention, and it kind of came to Lou during the spring training time frame of the movie, is Wesley Snipes' character. I wouldn't imagine. Well, actually, nowadays they're remaking anything and everything, so I guess I shouldn't say that. But if they were to remake this movie, and especially now, I think the perfect um, person to play Wesley Snipes' character um, would be Winston from New Girl. Um, that it just I don't know. Honestly, like the acting, the mannerisms and everything, it just made me think of the Winston character in some of the ways and attributes. So I feel like that would be a perfect plug-in for that actor to play that role. I'm not suggesting that they remake this movie, but if that were the case, that would be my pitch. Um, the one thing I had in my notes too, because I'm not a big baseball fan, I can appreciate postseason baseball because every game matters in postseason baseball, but they even talk about it in the movie, and I think it's actually gone up maybe since then, but they play 162 games. I don't know how you can get excited for 162 games. That's why I like football. College regular season 12 games. NFL, I don't know what is it, 16, 18 now. I'm more of a college fan. Um and so that is easy to keep track of. It's once a week. Like it's easy to make time for, but 162 games. Like I don't even know really how you can be a diehard baseball fan. I would love to know how many people actually watch every single game for their team. Like legit watch the entire game. And it's not like, because even what I do sometimes when I'm watching football, unless when it's not like the main game of the day that I want to watch, is I'll have it on the background and I'll be doing something else. I'm not watching the game intently focused the whole entire time. I don't know how you could go through that for 162 games plus now, and with how long those games are. Sorry, little baseball rant. I'm sure if Brandon was here, he and I would be on this tangent for a while because we both kind of feel the same. So when things got started and they started playing their games, like it was, of course, awful because a lot of the guys hadn't even played baseball in a long time, or if they had, it was minor leagues. And honestly, there probably would have been plenty of minor league teams that would have beat them in the first place, anyways. I was a little surprised at how quickly they said that it was kind of coming together and they were able to keep the team above 500 because that's not always easy. Even with teams that are professionally put together on purpose to win, it's not always easy to stay above 500, but somehow these guys were doing it. So, but that was part of the plot of the movie. So, one thing that was a little interesting to me, I don't know all the rules with baseball. So I thought it was a little interesting when Charlie Sheen hit a player with a wild pitch that he basically immediately got ejected. I don't think that happens too often. Like plenty of players wind up getting hit, and actually in worse situations where it seems absolutely deliberate. So that was kind of interesting. Another rule thing, I actually did see this, a note about this and how it was up because I kind of questioned it when I saw it. But there was a part, pretty sure it's in the last game, where Pedro hit a home run and he ran around the bases holding his bat, which I played baseball as a kid, I think two years. Um, and I always thought it was a rule that you couldn't and you would get ejected for it. But apparently, in some of the facts and trivia, it's saying that it's not a rule, and as long as the ball is not in play, there's nothing against a player carrying a bat or while they walk around the bases. So interesting thing to learn. So, um, probably one of my biggest gripes with this movie, and I kind of understand that they needed to add another element to it, was the love story. It felt really forced. Um, I mean, I know that they really wanted you to like the character Jake Taylor and root for him and everything, and you know, you could. But as far as everything with the relationship, it just was like, why? What what have we come to learn about this character that we feel like this woman who has a good thing going for her, except for the fact that her fiance is kind of a douche, that she should leave him and go with this other guy who is clearly made out to be like a womanizer, um, and doesn't really take life seriously. That was kind of hard for me this time around. I'm not sure exactly how I felt about that in previous times. I think I probably just didn't care about it much, but I don't know. They just don't develop him a whole lot other than him kind of being an older brother character to some of the players on the team and kind of mentoring them and some aspects of that. Like he doesn't, it's not really somebody to root for. Probably the biggest person that you feel like you wanted to root for was Charlie Sheen's character. You know, his opportunity. He's a young rookie. He's coming up and everything. Maybe could do some for himself, and he's like supposed to be the popular player on the team and everything. But yeah, there was a lot of focus on Jake Taylor and his love interest, and it just was not really doing it for me in here. There were several times that it made me question like what was even going on at the time because he walked into both of her houses like one place didn't even have a doorman and he just went up the elevator and just walked out into their apartment. And then the other time he followed her to her other place, to her own place and just walked in behind her. Like either she's not locking doors or he's breaking in somehow. Just, it's those funny things. And I'm sure Brandon would be here and say that he wouldn't think of these kind of things, but it's those funny things where it's just like, it doesn't really make sense. It doesn't really make sense how he just walks in and then they have this romantic uh inner interaction and everything, but it's moves along the plot of the movie. Um moving along through things, of course, the owner tries to throw more wrenches at the players by not fixing things for them, by forcing them to go off a commercial plane into a crappy plane, and then going from that to a really crappy bus, which you know would never work because they have some games where they play would have to go from Ohio all the way to California. So that technically wouldn't happen and wouldn't work long term at least. But then, of course, you have the development of Charlie Sheen's character into the Wild Thing persona, and he finally gets in his groove because they found out that he needed glasses, and he has that his final look where he's got the kind of like the lightning bolt looking haircut in the back, and then he's got his thick black glasses that he wears, and he actually starts being good and helping the team. So, um, they the rest of the movie goes on. They finally start winning. They have that the manager comes up with that whole I wouldn't call it a wager, but the whole poster of the owner and it's like a strip tease and everything where they take a piece off for every game they win as they close into winning their division. I'm just going to call it winning their division. I could be wrong with that. Um and so they make it all the way and to get beyond that, they have to beat the rival Yankees, which I'm pretty sure that they were just winless against for the entire season. And it's a dramatic buildup. Right before then, now this is the interesting thing, at least to me, just because I remembered this movie rather well. It had been quite some time since I watched it last, but the one part that escaped my memory was Roger getting caught by his wife for cheating, and then she wound up cheating on him with Charlie Sheen to get back at him because she knows how much they don't get along and they don't like each other. Roger, the character Roger, and Charlie Sheen or Wild Thing. I don't know why, because I mean that's a really integral part, especially at the end going into the last game, and just how he had no idea until it was done and over what happened. And of course, you know how devastating that would be to really kind of like a locker room dynamic and everything. Um, Ironically, before that, the manager decides not to put Charlie Sheen in to pitch the game anyways, so they weren't interacting a whole lot. But they have their coming together moment. Those two characters, they have their opportunity. Sure, most, if not all of you, have seen the movie. They get the chance in the final inning with Wesley Snipes um, on second base to try to take the lead and win the game. And probably the most memorable scene for me in this movie, and I think most people, is Jake Taylor going out there, who's not known to be a strong hitter. I mean, he's not even in his prime anymore, but at the end of his sports career and everything. And he goes up and calls his shot like Babe Ruth. They pull the trick play where they bunt it, and then he goes and runs for first base while they're focused on him. Wesley Snipes goes in to steal, scores, wins the game, and that's the end of the movie. Well, actually, I stand corrected because what is actually the end of the movie is that somehow Jake Taylor's love interest, um, of course, is at the game, and then she reveals that she left her fiance all because he got good at sports again. Like what? I don't know what that was. Like there was no real connection. Like even when they were building that relationship of them getting back together and her cheating on her fiance, by the way. So great thing to instill positivity into this relationship for people to be on board and supporting it. Um, there was no depth. He was still like it was still a shallow relationship, and there was the biggest step he took was he read a book for her and tried spending time with her. I mean, definitely as a younger individual watching this movie, I don't think a whole lot about it because I don't know a lot about the intricacies of a older adult relationship with the idea of future marriage, family, lifelong together, and everything like that. Like basically, now looking back at this, this is just set up for a bad relationship and for them to get divorced if they ever wind up getting married in the first place. So it just makes me laugh a little bit where it's just like, how is this a good idea? How is this like a good idea for the story, but then also for his love interest to leave her fiance? Like he wasn't exactly a winner compared to the other guy. Yeah, he wasn't mean, but he was also kind of obnoxious and like she said, still rather childish. So that whole thing was a little surprising to me. But yeah, and so that's the end of the movie outside of Roger punching Charlie Sheen near the end and everything and everybody being kind of happy. So um I know that whole breakdown of the whole thing is not as funny and hilarious as this movie is because they do a really good job with it. Like I said, I do wonder if this might be. I don't know if I would label it as the most popular baseball comedy or the best baseball comedy, but it's definitely in those conversations. Absolutely for most popular because, man, I feel like anybody who's into sports movies or especially sports comedy movies knows this movie and enjoys this movie. So, and me, even not being a person who really enjoys the sport of baseball that much, it's an entertaining movie. It was a little bit drawn out because, like I said, the whole love interest story, but I don't know that you're going to really be able to cut that out or cut things down anymore. It moves together well. It was edited very well because it keeps you moving, it keeps you entertained. Honestly, the roughest parts were Jake Taylor and his girl, and some of those scenes being drawn out more. So, kind of minor things that I would pick apart with this because it is a good, solid, enjoyable movie. Uh, Normally, towards the end of things, I know usually these solo episodes are shorter, so honestly, I'm not entirely sure even how long we've been going. But normally, towards the end of things, Brandon would have facts and trivia. I actually really don't have much of anything because I did not have that planned or prepared for. I shared about how the there is no rule about carrying the bat around, and that was something that was new that I learned. Um, Apparently, around the time of the movie, there was a real life pitcher with the Chicago Cubs that started mimicking Charlie Sheen's character, wearing the number 9 and would have the Wild Thing song play when he was going out. Um, so he was inspired by this movie, but then also kind of a new, I don't know if it'd be a full-fledged tradition, but um, closing pitchers sometimes have intro songs, which was heavily inspired by this movie and the Wild Thing song. So interesting with that. Um, There is also something that I saw that came up, and I don't know exactly how much this is true, but there was a story that I heard that Wesley Snipes is actually not that fast of a runner. And so at the spring training, when they had the kind of big aha moment with like, oh, we should have this guy on the team, where he ran a race against two other baseball players when they were doing warm-ups and things. um, the other players actually had to run at a slower speed so that Wesley Snipes could look faster in the video. That's something that I saw, didn't really have confirmation on and everything, but is another story that comes from this movie. So would be kind of interesting if there was a way to confirm that. Um, One thing that definitely helped kind of with the enjoyability and watchability of this movie was the Harry Doyle character of the announcer. Just a fun personality that they had in there, and definitely brought some flair and color to the movie itself with the different comments he would make when the team was terrible and also when they were better. And honestly, like I don't I don't recognize the name of him. I mean, for all I know, he maybe is real life radio announcer. Um, I think so. I just searched and I think he was a real radio announcer because I was gonna say if not, like he did a fantastic job. And that would only make sense that they would actually get a real radio announcer. I'm probably sounding ridiculous to some of the people who are listening to this on like who are actually baseball fans and knowledgeable people in the sport of baseball and being like, I can't believe that you don't know who that was. You're right, because this is baseball is not my sport. So go ahead and give me as much flack for that as you see fit. So yeah, I will give my grade here momentarily. I actually have not looked up the IMDb score or the Rotten Tomato scores, so I am still going to predict that. Um, Going ahead, I would probably say IMDb has this at like, I don't know, maybe like a 6.1. Survey says, oh man, I was way off. 7.2. So, all right, 7.2. Um, that's where it comes into like the popularity of this movie. I just didn't know with it being a comedy if they would give it all that much. So I definitely do not have anything for the budget and the profit. That is something that Brandon has his places to search for that information. I did not have that ready and prepared. Um, then talking about the Rotten Tomato critic and Rotten Tomato audience, I would probably guess critic about 80% and then audience about 90%. So I gotta open the right window that I had. Rotten Tomatoes has 80. Wow, this is one of the most even scores between critic and fans. 83% and 84%. So pretty close there. And that is actually kind of right in line with what I was saying because I was thinking um 80 and 90%. So right there smack dab in the middle. All right, so my reactions and my grade. Like I said, definitely arguably in there for one of the best known baseball comedies, if not the best known. Enjoyable. It has withstood the test of time as far as being an enjoyable watch. Is there some questionable material from the time? Absolutely. I find it kind of ironic already that I said how it's not even a team that's really around anymore because they had to change the name. Um, but that kind of leans into the whole comedy part of it, in my opinion. That happened to and it's a long lost baseball team now. So again, I enjoyed it. I could go back and watch this if I was. I don't know if I would have to say if I was even more of a baseball fan, but if I was looking for something for a good time with some fun laughs, this is a good one. Um, the soundtrack was nothing special. It fit. It didn't really boost the movie at all. I mean, other than the song, the Wild Thing. Um, there wasn't really anything memorable that stood out to me. I talked about the cinematography, the plot in general. The cast is a strong point with this movie. So that gives it a good foundation just for the comedy in general. If you're trying to do a comedy with a cast that doesn't really fit or gel well together, then that's kind of a recipe for a disaster. So really with how it all comes together, really good. It's not I rate things for what they are in general. And so as far as comedies go, this is not um in the upper echelon of comedies as a whole. And sports comedies, I believe it's really great. I was hovering between a 4.5 and a 4. And I think that with the struggles with the romantic relationship, and it did hold up over time, but not super, not not excellent, not as great as some of the other things that we've seen. I think I'm gonna wind up settling on a 4 out of 5 between those two. So yeah, that would be my grade. And potentially what we might have is Brandon sharing his information at some point on what his grades and thoughts are, just briefly. Now, the interesting thing, though, is that wraps up Sportstember for us. What is next? Next is our Rocktober marathon. We always bring you extra episodes during this time and everything, and they are shortened episodes. So we don't really do our intros. We don't have our general conversations at the beginning, and we are bringing you, making sure that I have this right. I want to say it's 12 episodes for this October, and starting next week Friday, so usually when our episodes go off, from there through the rest of the month, almost all the way to Halloween, we're gonna have episodes on Friday, Monday, and well, actually, I should just say Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So be on the lookout for those. This is a variety year. A lot of times we do themes, like we did the Halloween series, we did uh Friday the 13th series, and then we did, why am I blanking? Nightmare on Elm Street series. This is one of those variety years again, and so we've got a great range of movies that we're going to be discussing. So don't miss out on those. Brandon's been doing really great. This is a lot of his project is working on putting more of our content up on YouTube. And so you can find a lot of our older Rocktober marathons on there. And those are a good time as well. Appreciate you all tuning in. If you are liking things, please remember to like, subscribe, follow. We've been doing this for a while and having a good time. And so it is nice to know when people are enjoying the content. And yeah, so a week from when this is coming out, we'll have our first episode out for October, and I will give you a little scoop on that first one. First one is a great one with the 1974 Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So hope to see you for that, to have you around to listen to that episode coming up. And as always, until next time, be kind and rewind.